In other words, this internalized sort of fear of male-male bonding. It doesn't even have to be erotic. Like if you look at two men hugging in our culture, there usually invariably has to be a hitting of the back going on, because there's this subconscious fear that, oh shit, somebody might think I'm a bit gay if I really relax into this hug with my brother, you know. And so I believe that gay panic is one of the cogs, one of the major systemic cogs in the wheel of this predatory capitalistic society we find ourselves in, that actually keeps men, as I said before, separate and weak and emasculated.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lonnie. This is Lady Braven of the Pride. Thank you for joining me for this brave conversation. Today, we're going to be talking with Will Blunderfield, and we're going to be talking about the rise of the divine masculine. This is something that always fascinates me. I'm always interested in any information that educates people on the divine. So this is going to be an amazing conversation. But before I introduce Will, I would just like to ask all of my returning audience, please like this video because it helps with my analytics and helps to build my channel. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe because we have courageous conversations almost every day, and they are meant to empower, inspire, and encourage you to be brave. Also, if you'd like to leave a comment on this video or any of my videos, every month I'll be giving away one of my brave books. I have 3 brave books: Courage During Beep, Speaking Truth to Power, and Ascending Human Consciousness. I'll be giving away 1 book every month to somebody that comments on my videos below. So please ask a question, or make an affirmation. Say something like, I am brave, or I am divine. All right, now I would love to introduce Will Blunderfield. He is a sex kung fu coach from Vancouver, BC. And he is passionate about spreading holistic wellness and helping men harness and potentiate their potency. Welcome, Will. Thank you for being here on the show and having this conversation with me.
Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here, Lenny.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do? Because that was a really brief introduction. Can you share a little bit more about what you do and why you're so passionate about speaking out about this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I was teaching hatha yoga, sort of your typical Lululemon stretchy yoga. I was actually a Lululemon ambassador, and I felt like something was missing from my practice and that of my students. And you can do all the down dogs in the world, all the deep stretches, but if you've got sexual blockages, it's not going to really address that aspect of the body, mind, soul complex. And so then I got into the realm of Kundalini yoga back in 2016. And that was actually, I went to see a psychic. I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and she was just like, you need to do Kundalini yoga. And I kept getting signs from the universe that that was a good path for me at the time. And a lot of students randomly started asking if I could teach them Kundalini yoga. And so I went to Yoga West in Kitsilano, and I had a catharsis in my first class, and I was crying. I was like, how can just like doing rapid breathing and rapid movements and chanting make me cry? But it was really great in terms of a cathartic experience, and a self-expression experience. We were dancing and we were singing. And it just felt like it was a good lineage for me to start to delve into. So I did like tons of trainings with them. I did the foundational level 1 training in Vancouver, and then I traveled to India to do their level 2 trainings. And long story short, I got kicked out of their community because they found out they had spies. It was like a movie. They had sent spies to one of my classes at a queer men's embodiment festival that I was teaching at in 2018. And they found out that I was teaching, naked. I had signed, an ethics agreement saying if I were to teach Kundalini yoga as taught by 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞, like the style that we learned in the training, that I would wear all white and I'd wear a white turban. So I always did that when I taught their style. But when I teach my own style, it's a fusion of many different inspirations. So long story short, 3 years later, their leader, 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞, it turns out he's a rapist. It turns out he's raped hundreds of women. There was this tell-all sort of autobiography that his head secretary released in 2020 in January, and that just caused like a tidal wave explosion of women coming forth talking about the abuse that they had suffered under Yogi Bhajan's regime. And so I felt like that was a good time for me to approach them and say, hey guys, like, well, another thing was right when all the Yogi Bhajan allegations came out, somebody said, hey, Will, do you realize that your name is on their website and they're slandering you? Like they've got all these yoga teachers who've raped students or whatever, and then they have you. And they give a reason for each yoga teacher, but for you, they just leave it blank. So I just was like, well, that's not cool, to slander me on the internet. So anyway, I reached out to them and I had a great conversation, multiple conversations with like the head of ethics in New Mexico via Zoom. And they ended up apologizing to me and they took my name off of their website and they reinstated my full license because I spent over $10,000 on their programs. And I learned so much, and it helped me break free of, alcohol and drug addiction. So it was a very powerful thing for me. And so I'm really grateful that we were able to find a common ground in the long run. And then the last little bit of my story, as it pertains to this topic is the Kundalini yoga community is very sexually repressed, I find. Despite Yogi Bhajan being a rapist, he was telling his followers that you weren't allowed to have any sex. And then they kind of complained and he's like, okay, you can have sex once a month. So that community I felt was very sexually repressed. And so what I've done is I've taken the everything that I've learned, even from Dr. 𝐥𝐤𝐬, I was grateful to get to study with him and to open for him when he was in Vancouver. So I take many different lineages and I kind of boil them down. And my goal is to help men rewild themselves and to feel more juicy and potent in a very glandular sense. And we know that Kundalini yoga addresses the endocrine system directly and it strengthens the nervous system so that you can basically channelize more sexual energy upwards rather than constantly outwards. And so I took the teachings. I got to study with Montauk Chia and a senior universal healing Tao instructor named Lauren Johnson. And I basically took the teachings from Taoist esoteric yoga, which is also known as sexual kung fu. Kung fu meaning the daily discipline of harnessing and directing our sexual energy. And I combined it with things that I learned in Kundalini yoga and things that I learned from Dr. 𝐥𝐤𝐬. And even when I did a training in mindfulness-based stress reduction, I became an instructor in that, which is a program created by Jon Kabat-Zinn out of the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And so, yeah, it was great, and I think you get the most flack when you're over the target. And so I know that sexuality is the biggest wound in all of humanity. And I know that as this colonialist society has promulgated itself, there is this real indoctrination to keep people afraid of their bodies and afraid of their sexuality. So here I am, the wild naked man encouraging dudes to get naked and hug with their dicks touching. And I know that's like, it's a very triggering thing for a lot of people, but I think the only reason why it's triggering is because we are literally living in this dominator system, sort of white settler colonialist matrix. I've been reading the travel logs of Spanish and French conquerors when they came to, for example, Vancouver, and they saw the savages, quote unquote savages, performing erotic bonding activities. The alpha males of the tribe were basically having sex with each other, and also the two-spirit shaman was usually what we would call maybe a bisexual man who basically was supposed to be really good at being a man and really good at being a woman. So sometimes he'd wear like feathers and sometimes he'd wear makeup. And when the women in the tribe were menstruating, they were considered to be too powerful for these alpha male warriors to hang around. So the men would go with the gay dude, the two-spirit shaman, into the forest and perform erotic bonding rituals. And the women would go into the quote unquote red tent and menstruate together and perhaps perform yoni steaming rituals with beautiful herbs. And there was this embracing and embodiment of the erotic energy within the spiritual rituals of these tribes. And 85% of the tribes that I studied when I did a degree in critical studies in sexuality and psychology at UBC. And so it was really sad to read these travel logs of these white Spanish and French settlers who were like, what are these people doing? Like, this is disgusting. Basically, they were calling them faggots, but 300 years ago. So they used the word berdache, which means it's like a French term for like slut. So they basically called the gay dudes the sluts, and they just were appalled that, these savages were not performing, heterosexual Christian ways of life. And so there, that's a big part of my training is I'm like, let's rewild ourselves. Let's bring it back. Let's bring our psyches back before the settlerization of the West happened. And let's explore these, what maybe the modern cultures would call pagan ways of spirituality that did incorporate, a sexual element. Like even my ancestors in Celtic times, they literally worshipped a deity called Cernunnos, who was half deer, like half stag, half man. And he was often depicted with a massive penis, spreading his seed throughout the forest. And I've been reading a book called The Double by Edward C. Selner. And in that book, he actually talks about how the Celtic warriors would suck each other's nipples. The males would suck each other's nipples, and share the same bed, to raise oxytocin and to bond so they'd be more apt to protect each other the next day on the battlefield. So
Mm,
these types of things that our culture would say, well, that's gay. It actually, in my experience, makes you more glandularly healthy. And then so if you are that alpha male archetype, it does make you more able to hold space for women, the divine
right.
feminine. um
Right. So, wow, there is so much that you have so much information to share. I want to kind of break it down a little bit
yeah.
and go back to some of the fundamentals and the basics of
Hmm.
your information and what you're trying to share, the message that you're trying to share with the world. I think
Hmm.
it's really important, actually, because this is a part of our, not only our history, but a part of our culture
Hmm.
to have all of these limiting beliefs. I want to start off with what do you consider soul sexual to be?
Mm. I got that term from a teacher named Shaman Durek, and I was reading his book, Spirit Hacking, which is a really great book. And he we ended up speaking one on one, and he came on my show. And like I think that labels are really, especially sexual identity labels, are tools that the dominator system uses to divide and control us,
Hmm.
and to basically increase competition and comparison between us. I think that we live in what Shaman Durek calls the age of narcissism, where people feel they really need to have this strict allegiance to these dominator system labels, such as gay or trans or Jewish or spick or crippled or Puerto Rican. And I think people think these labels make them so unique when really they make everybody exactly the same. They're just tools that the matrix uses to divide and control. There's so,
Right.
for example, between males, there's so much competition between men in our culture, and so much competition and comparison on the back of that. So I think that in my experience, when we just come together, like I focus on men, um, when we come together and like get naked, and do these erotic bonding rituals and learn how to separate orgasm from ejaculation, it's this camaraderie, it's this ancient primal sort of sensation of glandular potency, of iron sharpening iron, yang sharpening yang, that makes me feel relating to the term soul sexual. It's like if I had to label myself, when my glandular system is juicy and potent, I see the beauty, the erotic potentiality, divine, sexy connections between myself and women and myself and men. When my glandular system is atrophied, as it was for most of my life, because I was eating toxic food and toxic water and toxic pharmaceuticals and breathing toxic air, and I didn't know how to detoxify from that. When it was atrophied and when my nervous system was shot because of the cocaine that I was doing, I just wanted to get, pardon my French, I just wanted to get rammed in the butthole. My sexual proclivities were one of very, very lusty sort of, I'm not enough as I am. I feel horrible in my body. I can't even feel my genitals. I was sexually abused by a doctor at the age of 4. So for most of my life, I couldn't even feel my genitals. I couldn't feel my divine masculine prowess. I couldn't feel like that sexy alpha male lion that I was born to be. And from
Right.
that place of lack, my sexuality was very lustful. And I don't know if you've read the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, but he
No.
talks about the scales of consciousness and how lust is a very low vibration, but the higher equivalent of lust is eroticism. So the soul sexual label, if I had to label myself, I feel like that most encapsulates my intentionality of like, I'm fully embodying my true original self, healthy, happy, and holy, divine masculine, and also honoring my divine feminine. And then I'm relating with others from at that level rather than the lust level.
Right.
I'm enough as I am. I'm a complete circle. I'm a soul sexual. I can see your beauty, whether you're male, female, or whatever you call yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And I really do see so much of this rise in consciousness coming along with the rise in the divine feminine and the rise of the divine masculine. All of this information is coming to the surface right now. And I think
Mhm.
it's really important that we're sharing it. And you mentioned that you had quit drinking
Mhm.
from using these practices. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about how you moved away from like alcohol and all of the substances and started focusing more on your sexual power?
Totally. I always say my holy trinity for helping get off drugs is sexual kung fu, so sexual transmutation, semen retention for men. Which, and that doesn't mean, by the way, like never ejaculating. It's just about conscious ejaculation and extending the periods between ejaculation so that your body can stay robust and full, essentially glandularly. Because I think most men are walking around in a state of ejaculation hangover. I know I was, even if I was ejaculating once every 4 days, it was still too much for my system. It takes the body so many resources to create semen. So, sexual kung fu, semen retention, and superfood nutrition and detox. And so
Mm,
when I started to do that, like I have a mentor named Troy Casey. He goes by Certified Health Nut Online. And he kept trying to get me involved in this superfoods company called Perineum. And I was like, this is like multi-level marketing. This isn't for me. I'm Canadian. The exchange rate's going to make it ridiculous to ship this stuff up here. But then like when the whole world shut down, I thought, well, maybe now would be a good time to do a cleanse. So I did the ultimate lifestyle transformation from Perineum. You can use my code UrbanYogi, all one word, for 25% off at
okay.
iShopPerineum.com. But I only promote what I love. And so many of those companies, like you look at the ingredients, like I guess I can mention one name. I don't want to bash too many companies, but Herbalife, because they've done tons of documentaries on how poorly they conduct themselves. So Herbalife, you look at the back, it's like, okay, GMO soy, processed sugar. I don't think I want that in my protein shake. Whereas
Mhm.
with Burium, it's tested 36 times from seed to final product. It's all beyond organic, no added sugars. It's all basically like wheatgrass juices and carrot juices that are dried at very low temperatures, so they retain the preponderance of their nutritional value. So I started doing that, and then like I feel like my whole belief now is if you just stack good daily habits, like eating a bit better, maybe doing some more barefoot walking, the morning cold showers, bit of breath work. If you just kind of follow your bliss and add things into your life that make you feel juicy and high naturally, that teach you how to get high on your own supply, the negative patterns like drinking too much or eating too much deep fried food kind of fall away because you show your psyche that, oh my God, we're all addicts in a sense. It's just about getting addicted to the right things. So now I'm addicted to sunshine. I'm addicted to butthole sunning. I'm addicted to eating lots of really healthy, green, organic things. So I think that's what happened. And then the Kundalini yoga is another way to get high on your own supply. So I kind of replaced addictions that don't support life with addictions that do.
Right. And I've seen so much of this, not only in my friend circle, but and just everywhere of people embracing more of nature, more of
Mm,
breath work and meditation and more seeking out more information that's going to help them elevate their frequency and become healthier and
yes.
raise their consciousness. So this is all so incredibly relevant and so important for people. I've never heard of butthole sunning.
It's actually an ancient practice. My
Okay,
teacher
tell
Montauk
me
Chia,
more.
yeah, my teacher Montauk Chia talks about it. He's the grandmaster of sexual kung fu, Taoist esoteric yoga, and so it's basic. He calls it perineum sunning.
Okay.
And in the Tao, the perineum, so the space between the genitals and the anus, is the $1 million point. It's the starting point of the endocrine system. And if you can get that in the sun, the skin is very thin there. The idea is you're absorbing more energy, more chi through your butthole, through your perineum, into your bloodstream. You're tonifying your blood. And there were certain doctors at certain times in history in Europe, for example, where they would take really sick people and they would have them sit outside in the sun for a bit. Like their sun therapy was a thing. They've done studies on men shining UV light on their chests and their genitalia, and they found that shining it on the genitalia increases testosterone 200%. This study was done in the 1940s. They haven't done very many studies since. But there's also something called red light therapy, which I have a big red light therapy panel on my door, and I stand naked in front of it every morning. And I get my butthole in there, I get my genitals in there, I get my chest in there, I get my face, and it's got 660 nanometer wavelength, which is red light, and 850 nanometer wavelength which is near infrared light. The red light's good for beautifying your skin, and the 850, the deeper penetration light, is good for like healing your organs and healing injuries like muscle tears and sprains and stuff of that nature. And if you shine it on your genitals, increases testosterone.
Okay,
I'd
and
imagine, yeah. For
does
women,
it have,
maybe if you shone it on your ovary area, it might increase estrogen. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the research.
oh, right. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
So it's not the same for my butthole has never seen the light of day. So
Oh, yeah. Try
for
it. And I always
sunshine.
say, these are all just, things that people did, and
Mhm.
just try it and see how it makes you feel. And, maybe just start with 30 seconds to 5 minutes, so you don't burn your butthole and just see how it makes you
Okay.
feel.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm all about trying new things.
Nice.
Absolutely. Okay, so okay. Can we talk a little bit more about gay panic and how that overcoming that fear will assist in the rise of the divine masculine?
Yeah. This part of my work is probably the most triggering, or one of the most triggering aspects, because I honestly believe that gay panic, in other words, this internalized sort of fear of male bonding, it doesn't even have to be erotic. Like if you look at two men hugging in our culture, there usually invariably has to be a hitting of the back going on,
Mm,
because there's this subconscious fear that, oh shit, somebody might think I'm a bit gay if I really
mm,
relax into this hug with my brother. And so I believe that gay panic is one of the cogs, one of the major systemic cogs in the wheel of this predatory capitalistic society we find ourselves in, that actually keeps men, as I said before, separate and weak and emasculated. Even my teacher Montauk Chia talks about how when men come together to be erotically intimate with each other, they're actually sharpening each other's yang polarity. Everything in the universe is about polarity. And so things like ejaculating excessively to porn, constantly releasing your seed, eating feminizing pesticide laden foods,
mhm,
being exposed to too many heavy metals through pharmaceuticals and water and food that have been contaminated. All these things add up to pinch men off from their potentiality to really rise into their divine masculine. But the dominator system is very clever. They've made those things seem really, really good. Oh, it's really, really good idea to inject heavy metals right into your body. They make that seem really good. Even certain family members of mine who are doctors, I say, hey, do you know that there's aluminum in vaccines? And they didn't even know that. Most of the doctors that I've asked, they didn't even know that they use aborted fetal cell lines. They didn't even know that they put, yellow number 5 and MSG and um, even methylparabens in some vaccines. And all these things serve to pinch men off from their divine masculine. Whereas things that are really good for us, like men getting together and hugging without any gay panic coming up, they make that seem so bad. So it's almost like we live in this inverted world where many things that are really, really healthy and natural have been demonized. And many, many things that are actually really, really bad for you. Like I'm vaccine injured. I can only see out of one eye because of the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine that I had when I was 6 months of age, which damaged the nerves in my right eye. So I know firsthand, and I have family members who've gotten the COVID vaccine, and now certain dear ones close to me can't see fully, and it's going to be a permanent thing. Um,
mm.
so, I'm not pro or anti anything. I'm just sharing from my heart and from my life, but I really do see that many things that are good for us have been really, really demonized, and many things that are not so good for us have been lauded as like this is the answer, you know?
Absolutely. And you know what? I want to say thank you very much for sharing and
Yeah.
for all of the information that you're providing because uh, I personally don't know a lot of places where I could get this information. I haven't done all of the research and the background studying that you've done. So I think it's important to share this information with the rest of the world, especially since the rise of the divine masculine. So you have a number of courses and workshops, and you have a
Mhm.
manhood academy.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Totally. Yeah. If you go to manhoodacademy.podia.com, you can see all my courses that I've designed. Everything from a penis lengthening course to a Spartan bonding course to a wild masculine semen retention training. That's kind of my magnum opus course. The wild masculine is really the pillars that we've been talking about: the sexual kung fu, the semen retention, the superfoods, and also the rewilding elements. But I wanted to be the change. I really want to be the change I wish to see in the world. And as much flack as that's been getting me, like a huge podcast with a cult following in the US just found my work, and they've been lambasting me constantly the last 5 days. So it's been interesting because I'm grateful for things like sexual kung fu and Kundalini yoga and superfoods because it's prepared my nervous system to be able to handle the hate. Like literally, I got an email yesterday from some random person on my website contacting me through my website saying, "I hope you die of cancer." Like they, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like
Right.
people like that's just the tip of the iceberg of things that people have been saying to me. They're basically saying like, "I hope you die because you believe that men should be free and not have gay panic." That's
Right.
they don't want to know that. They don't want many people who are really stuck in their labels. They don't like the idea that you could be, you know, using
Mhm.
same-sex erotic bonding to actually enhance your procreative potentiality with females. They don't like that because if you watch Netflix or any of the dominator system tools, it's all about drinking alcohol. It's all about rigidly adhering to sexual identity labels.
Mhm.
So when I say something like, let's just throw the labels out the door and let's just really tune into our glandular system and see what makes us feel the most juicy to be alive, a lot of the bobbleheads don't like that.
Mhm.
So that's one side of the coin. The other side is like tons of people have been reaching out to me being like, thank you. Your work is what I've needed. I've been looking for something like this. Oh my gosh, soul sexual. I love that. My OnlyFans and all my online programs are just skyrocketing in terms of sales. So thank you to the podcast who's been slandering
Mhm.
me. You're helping me pay my rent. Namaste.
And again, I mean, it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do what you're doing and to share the information that you're sharing. And this is what speaking truth to power. This is what
Mm,
this book is all about. It's about speaking your truth in the face of this kind of rejection and controversy or judgment, criticism, and just standing strong in your own divinity and power and speaking your truth.
mm.
I also had people wishing me dead because I organized a freedom rally.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you
Because
organized
I
a freedom rally.
organized a freedom rally in my own hometown, I had people wishing me dead.
Oh my gosh. This
So,
was on the island?
no, I'm in Squamish.
Oh, you're in Squamish, right? So
Yeah.
people in Squamish, because I've met so many open-minded people, that's really sad to
Well,
sad to hear that.
there's a few open-minded people, but there's a lot of people who were actually calling me the enemy of Squamish and wishing me dead
Oh my
because
God.
I was trying to bring counter-narrative information and the truth to people
Mhm.
so that they could make informed decisions about the
Mhm.
vaccinations.
Wow. Well,
And
thank you for
yeah,
doing that. Do
well,
you
I
know
mean,
as well
I
what
know
it's like?
exactly how you feel and what you've gone through. It's not a nice feeling, but I do
Mm.
want to say thank you again to you
Oh,
for
my
being
pleasure.
so brave and for sharing your information and content. Okay, so if people wanted to get in touch with you, do you do your courses all online or do you have any in-person events?
I've been collaborating with a lovely fellow named Brian Carew, who's a movement instructor and erotic
I know, Brian.
you know him. Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Erotic educator here in Vancouver. And we're planning on maybe doing a something in person and also facilitating a men's retreat in Nelson in August. So if you reach out to me through willblunderfield.ca, I'd be happy to share more about those offerings. But
Mhm.
other than that, everything that I do is online, which I actually really like because the work can be so triggering for dudes. It's just so counter narrative, right? It's the online space is actually in a way a bit of a good bridge for
Right.
somebody who's never been naked around other dudes before to really just like be in the comfort of their own home. And
Mhm.
then and also because I'm a prisoner in my own country, I can't leave, and also most of my students are unvaccinated, they can't come here. It's actually a great time to cultivate community and to grow the tribe virtually so that when things hopefully do open up, then I can start to facilitate more in-person workshops and retreats.
I love it. And
Mhm.
I'm going to put all of that information in the description of this video down below. Is there anything else that you would like to share with my brave audience at this time about the rise of divine masculine?
Well, I just want to thank you, Lenny, for having me on your show and for your bravery and your passion and everything that you do. It's really um, it's really satisfying. It's really makes me feel very joyful to see that you're doing something similar. I feel for the community as well as for the divine feminine rising. And I think that Aubrey Marcus said it best, or he said it in one of the most interesting ways. He said, I think every man has a fear that they might be just a little bit gay. And he's like, I don't care if you're 6% gay or 12% gay or 14% gay, but nobody's under 5% gay. He said
Mhm.
something like that. And I know that that word gay, for me, I don't like to use it, but what it's shining a light on is that male male erotic bonding is really a vitamin. We see it in over 15,000 animal species. And this idea that we have to be 100% into the opposite sex or 100% into the same gender is really a dominator system, psychological operation control mechanism to
Yeah.
keep us separate. And so any man who struggles, because I've mostly teach men who have girlfriends and wives and children, and so many have reached out to me saying, hey dude, like, thank you for your work, because like sometimes I watch gay porn and I finish to it and I just feel shame for like 3 weeks after. And you're
Mm.
helping me to realize that it's actually normal, and let's find higher frequency ways of expressing this desire to be close with other humans of the same gender
Mhm.
in a way that's devoid of shame. And so I'll just leave your audience with a mantra. When you're doing this work, you can say to yourself, I am fearless, I am shameless, I am doubtless. I got that from my teacher, Lauren Johnson, because fear in the present moment is fear, fear in the past is shame, and fear in the future is doubt. And you're probably the first man or woman in your lineage addressing these sexual shame issues head on. So good for you.
Mm.
Thank you to, I think anybody who's listened to this podcast this far is probably on the same page as us. So keep being brave, keep loving yourself and eating those superfoods so that you can tolerate the consequences of being yourself.
Right.
Mm,
Amazing. Thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Yes, and for everybody who has made it in this conversation this far, please comment down below to win one of my Brave books by the end of the month, and share this with a friend. Share this with a friend that might have some interest in discovering their own sexual divinity. And yeah, subscribe to Lady Braven of the Pride, because we have these conversations every day and they're meant to empower, inspire, and encourage you through these times, through the Great Awakening, into the golden age of humanity, because I do believe in all of the good things coming. And thanks a lot for being here, Will.
My
And
pleasure.
everybody, subscribe to Lady Braven of the Pride, because courage is contagious. And we'll see you
Amen.
next time.